Epic's new game engine, Unreal Engine 5, is set to add a new suite of options and seemingly ease the process of game development for developers large and small. That ease of use, plus a drastically improved toolset and multiple features designed to save time for developers, could lead to development methods that look vastly different from previous generations. But how poised is it to actually change the game development landscape? Well, IGN spoke to a number of both AAA and indie developers to discuss what Unreal Engine 5 brings to the table and the possible ripple effects it could have on the industry. The picture these devs formed of the engine is one of efficiency, increased usability for spread out dev teams, and the possibility of indie games being bigger in scope than ever before. To understand the greatest effects of Unreal 5, we have to examine what's different about this new engine. An engine is a grouping of tools, a framework of systems used to build a game. Think of the scaffolding around a skyscraper, with the building being the game under construction and the scaffolding as the engine. The scaffolding doesn't build the building, the builders do. But the scaffolding allows the builders to get where they need to go to easily do their jobs. So how is Unreal Engine 5's scaffolding different? And what makes developers choose it over other engines? Well, CD Projekt Red told IGN why, noting its switch from the studio's in-house engine. Red Engine holds a really special place in all our hearts here, and we're really happy with where it is in terms of performance, visuals, and speed. But we did spend a lot of energy on figuring out the best open-world content creation pipelines and the methods of organizing data and algorithms to stream them efficiently. All of that work was handled by an exceptionally talented but small team, parallel to the development of the game itself. It was a lot to take on. Even before exploring a change of engine, we changed our development philosophy to put greater emphasis on being able to create, test out, and iterate gameplay and user experience features much earlier in the process. Unreal Engine 5 supports this approach really well, and while we're still early in the partnership and still figuring out all the details, we definitely aim to take advantage of this. We won't get into all the specifics of UE5's advancements now, but the biggest changes include nanite, Unreal's geometry system, Lumen, the updated lighting system, and the advancements in world and data streaming. This is, of course, only scratching the surface, as Unreal 5 also includes changes to physics, fluid simulations, AI operations, character animation, and many more. But let's examine the big three mentioned above, and what devs think these features will bring to both development processes and the final products. Nanite promises limitless geometry. And while that may sound like the ninth circle of hell to those who shared my experience in high school, it actually means that full quality assets, containing millions of tiny triangles, can be created or imported to Unreal 5 with tiny hits to performance compared to before. According to Kate Rayner, studio technical director at the Coalition, during a recent Xbox wire, Nanite enables full quality movie assets to be rendered in real time. This means that our artists can create assets with tens of millions of polygons, scalable to scenes with billions and billions. The details are just incredible, more than 100 times what was possible before. In previous Unreal engines, placing objects with massive geometric detail in the middle of a scene could lead to intense slowdown and a tanking frame rate. As Chief Technology Officer for That's No Moon, Barry Genova told IGN, Nanite opens the ability to use highly detailed geometry while maintaining good runtime performance. In Epic's engine showcase video, Lumen in the Land of Nanite, you can see the massive amount of detail broken down to the actual triangles. You can also see the same in The Matrix Awakens in Unreal Engine 5 Experience, and even toggle the triangle view on and off yourself. You couldn't work easily with objects that had this level of detail before Unreal Engine 5, so the workaround in older engines is mostly twofold: normal mapping and authored LODs, or levels of detail. Normal mapping consists of taking a custom, highly detailed 2D texture and wrapping it around a lower detail object. Think of the face swapper in the Mission Impossible movies, or the movie Possessor if you truly would like to have nightmares forever. It allows developers to achieve textured detail without breaking the bank when it comes to resources, whether those resource constraints are the target hardware devs hope to ship on, or even the budget of the game, as removing extra steps can save tons of time and money. Custom LODs allow high-resolution and low-resolution versions of the same in-game asset to dynamically swap with each other based on the player's distance or line of sight to the object. A developer could let you see the best version of an object as you examine it from 3 inches away, but including that same asset far off on the horizon would simply be a waste of resources, as the engine would have to work to maintain that level of detail while it's not even possible to see. This was all done manually in previous engines, as developers have to create these extra assets and tell the engine when to use them. Both of these solutions, among many others, were creative workarounds to unavoidable problems. But Epic claims to fix them, or at least alleviate them, with nanite. Nanite allows the developer to place the highest quality asset possible, with massive amounts of geometric detail, without worrying about faking it with normal mapping or papering over the cracks with custom LODs. Dan Kim Win, an indie dev working on the new title Path to Etenway, praised this element of UE5, saying, "Nanite is a game changer. Any environment assets I create are less likely to cause performance issues when brought into UE5. I worry less about poly counts or the level of detail for assets. This gives me more freedom as an environment artist to create more realistic assets." Unreal's website claims it achieved this by intelligently doing work on only the detail that can be perceived and no more, by handling LODs without the extra step of having to create and tell the engine when to use them, and by streaming its data much more efficiently. And this isn't only going to help resource-constrained indie devs. As Bloober Team's lead programmer Mariusz Szaflik explained, multiple orders of magnitude increase in geometry complexity is a huge game changer for us. Artists are less constrained by polygon budget, could work faster, and be more creative. Of course, nanite is not a holy grail that will allow artists to put whatever they want into the game world, but certainly it can smooth asset-related pipelines and increase productivity and visual fidelity. These detailed assets can either be custom-made or imported from the Quixel Megascan library, a huge repository of assets available to pull from inside Unreal 5 using Quixel Bridge. No custom LODs necessary. But detailed geometry wasn't the only thing slowing down developers. Lighting was also very cumbersome in previous engines, which brings us to Lumen. Lumen is Unreal 5's fully dynamic global illumination and reflection system. Much like nanite, the promise of Lumen is in saving time for the developer and maximizing resources. And Travis Johnston, director of technology for ProbablyMonsters, whose team Firewalk is currently working on a new multiplayer IP for Sony, explained why that's so useful. Literally everyone at the company has been waiting for this. Most importantly, artists are beside themselves as they no longer have to make trade-offs of either reducing lighting quality or slower workflows with delayed results. Designers no longer need to choose between the amount of dynamic environments in the game versus the overall lighting and shadow quality. Engineers no longer have to set up and maintain light map farms that slow down builds and can suddenly fail during important milestones. Lastly, the finance people at small companies no longer need to make capital investments in light map farms just to get decent looking demos out the door. Gamers now get worlds they can interact with and modify that still look amazing for even better immersion. Literally everyone wins, so we expect the visual bar on games to jump very quickly in the next year. Lumen also works hand in hand with nanite, as high detail geometry would be wasted without high detail shadows and lighting. Diffuse lighting, or indirect lighting that often bounces off multiple sources, is now dynamic, much more accurate, and less resource intensive, as it can all be handled in-engine without a lighting artist performing multiple render passes or baking light to check the look of their scene. This interactivity with geometry also has dynamic in-game consequences, as Lumen in the Land of Nanite shows during the cave section. The lighting that was hitting the outside roof of the cavern is allowed to shine through once the geometry is broken, creating a hole in the structure. In older engines, this would be a scripted section with pre-baked lighting that would require specific instruction and rendering passes by a lighting artist. According to Bloober Team, Lumen and nanite have changed the way we think about content creation, and now some things, like fully dynamic environments, are easier to create than ever before. But Lumen and nanite, although possible game changers on their own, wouldn't make as much of an impact in giant open worlds if Unreal Engine 5 didn't change how the engine handles data across those immense spaces. For that, they've created World Partition. World Partition is a new system that makes it much easier to build large open worlds. While data management isn't the sexiest term to the outside observer, World Partition has the potential to be one of the most important features for indie studios, as it automates much of what makes open worlds currently so hard to manage. In their statement to IGN, CD Projekt Red's Chief Technology Officer Paweł Zawadny spoke on the advantages Unreal 5 could bring to smaller studios. Broadly, I think one of the things I'm most excited about when thinking about the wider industry is the availability and accessibility of technology to create open worlds. Large-scale open worlds historically have required a lot of investment and resources, and are hard to make with smaller teams. They can be complicated, and a massive challenge for independent studios who simply don't have hundreds of developers on staff. But with Unreal Engine 5 putting a big focus on open worlds, I think you'll start to see smaller developers taking on open worlds, and seeing what they can do in that space. World Partition does the work of dividing your giant open world into smaller levels. Behind the scenes, of course, not in the act of actually playing, so the game is only loading what it needs and not breaking the performance. And not only does this help with performance, but workflow as well. Both Bloober Team and ProbablyMonsters mentioned a new feature inside of World Partition by name called One File Per Actor, or OFPA. In older Unreal engines, if you wanted to make changes to a particular file, it could lock another developer out of what they were doing until you were done, slowing everybody down. OFPA lets a developer work with a very small partitioned building block of the level without affecting everyone else's work, drastically easing the workflow for everyone. In Travis Johnston's words, "Many conflicts over source control exclusive checkouts have all but gone away, and team members can no longer accidentally hold each other up." This new data management system is especially important in a post-pandemic world where many devs are no longer occupying the same physical space, and can't be asked, very nicely I'm sure, to please log off for the 12th time so everyone else can get their work done. Again and again, the answers I received from devs about the features they were most excited about were ones that improved the efficiency of their workflow. There will most likely be games that look incredible in large part because of these new tools, Nanite, Lumen, and World Partition. But more often than not, the excitement stemmed from the fact that devs can simply focus on what they want to do in the first place, spending less time fiddling with tools and more time making games fun, a process called iteration that requires tons of trial, error, and time. The process of iteration is so important that several of the statements we received from devs all mentioned it by name, with both CD Projekt Red, as in the quote mentioned above, and That's No Moon both mentioning it no less than 4 times, especially as it pertains to the gameplay loop, or what the player will be doing over and over again while playing their game. If that core loop isn't fun or enjoyable in some way, then what's the point? And iteration is not only improved by the tools mentioned above. Blueprint Visual Scripting, a node-based tool for scripting out gameplay behaviors, despite being already available in previous Unreal engines, was often brought up by That's No Moon when discussing the workflow improvements brought to the table. Max Diekoff, Director of Engineering for That's No Moon, told us that AI prototyping can be much faster in UE5, and Drew Murray, their lead animation engineer, was excited about new and expanded animation tools, including a machine learning framework and the new Rewind debugger, an automated tool for diagnosing animation problems. In a less specific statement during a recent Xbox Wire, the Coalition said UE5 enables developers to take the handcuffs off and truly create the content we've always dreamed of making. No more compromises. It also creates the removal of friction points in workflow. UE5 has rapidly increased our iteration time because working within the engine is a what you see is what you get experience. There's no more guesswork. The tech is all there, and now all we have to do is familiarize our content creators to it. Nearly every statement I've received from developers or found from previous interviews all point to Unreal 5 making their lives easier. With ballooning budgets, expanding production timelines, and an increasingly remote workforce, anything to ease the pipeline will not only make games look better, but smooth out the technical side of things as well, which in theory leads to more time in playtesting and design phases. But this new ability for everyone to easily use lifelike assets doesn't come without caveats. Bruce Straley, co-creator of The Last of Us, while addressing the general advancements in dev tools, but not Unreal Engine 5 in particular, tweeted, "Now that realistic graphics are at every dev's fingertips, stylization and art direction is going to be essential to stand out from the crowd. Good art directors, creative artists, and artistically minded rendering engineers are needed now more than ever. Likewise for gameplay systems. The more compromises to dynamic, interactive, responsive experiences made in order to achieve photorealistic graphics, the further we get from actually achieving integrated, realistic gameplay experiences. With Nanite, Lumen, World Partition, and a more efficient pipeline, Unreal Engine 5 appears to give developers more power over the scope, look, and mechanics of their games than ever before. Now it's up to them to decide the best way to use it. But at the very least, That's No Moon's Barry Genova explains how UE5's new tools allow devs to do just that with fewer roadblocks than ever before. Unreal Engine 5 is going to continue to push the quality of all games higher. Unreal allows teams to focus on the game, instead of having to spend a significant amount of time building up all the framework and infrastructure of an engine. It showcases what is possible, providing inspiration, even for games not made with Unreal Engine. Developers have more time to research, innovate, and iterate on the gameplay, providing a wider variety of experiences for all the players. It is net win for everyone. And that does seem to truly mean everyone, as many devs see their use of Unreal Engine 5 not as a business transaction, but a partnership. CD Projekt Red told us, "We saw that there was a good prospect for a close, long-term cooperation between us and Epic. We saw the potential for our next game to be a driver for further development of Unreal Engine 5, especially in terms of open worlds. And we also saw the chance to put our existing knowledge and experience to great use, and quickly adapt Unreal Engine 5 to our ambitions and needs." We hope you enjoyed this look at the potential future of Unreal Engine 5. While you're here, be sure to check out the Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 full demo. And for everything else gaming, you're already in the right place. IGN.
Bloody hell.
Taste this, cabrona!